Welcome everyone. I'm going to do a quick video right now. I just had an idea and I wanted to share it with you. So I recently saw an article saying that the hash power of Bitcoin has increased dramatically. So the price has increased and so has the hash power. And basically what I wanted to say is every input into the Bitcoin ecosystem directly affects your bottom line. So if you do not think that the electricity usage of Bitcoin affects your bottom line, then you don't understand basic economics, because this is how it works. There's nothing free in this world, and everything gets passed on to the end user. So all that electricity usage and all the waste will ultimately affect the cost per transaction for Bitcoin. And it's never going to be able to compete with these proof of stake protocols that use far less energy, because the costs that need to be offset to miners in order for them to maintain profitability will always stay above a certain threshold. Let me give you a concrete example. If you've ever lived in New York City, or you've ever been to New York City, there's a grocery store, popular grocery store called Westside Supermarket, I believe. And back in 2011, back in 2012, when I was in New York, I would go to Westside and they had just the automatic doors where you can walk in to the grocery store. And what happens is during the summer, it's really hot outside, so the AC is running overtime. And during the winter, all that cold air and the snow comes inside and the heaters have to run overtime. And what happens is over time, that makes the groceries more expensive, because if the heating bill is higher or the AC bill is higher, while you're not directly paying for it, you're indirectly paying for it. It affects the price of the food. They add little taxes here and there in order to offset their expensive rent and their expensive costs for running that grocery store. It's all in their profit margin, it's all on their sheet. So in 2013, they installed this double door. So there's like this little plastic door that's outside of the door. So when it's the dead of the winter and it's super cold, there's a little buffer zone where people can come in without bringing in all that cold air, and ultimately that increases the efficiency of the grocery store, probably saving them a lot of electricity and saving them a lot of money on their bill. And that passes on to the customer. So what I'm saying is every single issue with Bitcoin will ultimately, all that electricity usage, it's going to be passed on to you, whether you like it or not. There was an article about Bitmain the other day, and it was in March, I believe, and they purchased 200,000 new miners to do Bitcoin transactions to basically mine Bitcoin. And it was just in-house because they just felt like it. 200,000 miners, and the average miner, the cubic foot of an average miner is about 0.3 cubic feet, and 200,000 of those would ultimately, if you've ever seen those giant shipping containers, it would fill up 22 40-foot shipping containers, fill them to the brim. And if it was the 20-foot, the half shipping cargo, the 20-foot containers, they would do around 40 or 45. And that is a tremendous amount for just a spur of the moment. We're going to add 200,000 miners to this ecosystem. And what happens? Those miners will be outdated within a matter of time. And what happens to those miners? They just end up in a landfill. They end up poisoning the environment, and they're just wasteful. They can't be reused. I mean, I guess a little bit can be recycled, but with those ASIC miners, they're one-function miners. So it's really hard to use them for any other purpose than what they were made for. You could melt it for scrap, but the amount of metal within those particular miners is so small that the energy output or the energy input to actually recycle that material, you would lose so much in the process. You'd get like probably 10, 5, maybe 1% of the actual raw materials back. Everything else would be scrap. And people are not thinking about this in economic terms. And the economic terms is all that money is going to pass on to you and I when we're making our Bitcoin transactions. Why were the fees astronomical once the usage of the network increased? It's because things like that happen, and people are going to say Lightning Network, Lightning Network, Lightning Network. We'll see. It's a centralized solution, first of all. The Lightning Network is centralized, and that's also they're going to charge fees because people have to run servers, and ultimately when traffic increases, when demand increases, traffic's going to increase, and overhead is going to increase. But there's a solution to all this, and that's proof of stake. So if you look at a project like Cardano, you see that you can relatively run the testnet in a relatively small environment with not a lot of hardware, and it doesn't have to be the most powerful computer. It doesn't have to be the most powerful server, and you can run it. And we're going to have thousands of them, and we're going to be using kilowatt hours per year, while Bitcoin is using terawatt hours per year. And it's a whole magnitude of difference. It's like comparing a magnitude 6 earthquake with a magnitude 8. And if you understand earthquakes, it's a multiply, it's a factor of 10. So if you go from 6 to 7, that's 10 times worse, and 7 to 8, 8 is 10 times worse than 7. So you have to figure it out like that. And this is what we're going towards. And you want to make sure that you're on the right side of this business transaction. So figure out where you want to be. And if you're truly about low fees and an equitable cryptocurrency for all, then you would choose a proof of stake system. Or you would choose something like Bitcoin Cash. I'm not a proponent of Bitcoin Cash, by the way. The Bitcoin core is the real Bitcoin, and Bitcoin Cash is a spinoff, but that's exactly what their issue is. They're increasing the block size. But ultimately, that also increases hardware costs over time. So, everyone is going to try to solve this and try to bring it down to 0 fees. But there are other crypto projects out there that have negligible fees and that people are ignoring because people only want to stay within this Bitcoin ecosystem. And I think that's going to change over time. I don't think it's going away, but people need to be cognizant of that. Let me know what you think. Until the next video, I appreciate you.